series. Natural inversion recap. Partings and sections move from a profile into diagonal back. Distribution moves from 90 degrees to over-directed. Elevation is 90 degrees to over-directed. And the line is cut visually, increasing in length. Personalizing is an essential part of the Toni and Guy philosophy. Texturizing techniques are used to adapt classic shapes to suit the individual. On the last video in this series, we introduced techniques such as point cutting, slicing, brick cutting, and razoring, which expand the classic portfolio to accommodate all lengths and textures of hair and allow the stylist to develop their creativity for the benefit of the client. The square layer cut creates internal texture and shape on a mid-length baseline. The perimeter has been created by using the one-length technique and also the forward graduation technique, both of which can be viewed in this collection. But to briefly recap these techniques: one-length recap. Partings and sections move from a profile into a diagonal forward, into horseshoe. The distribution moves from natural fall into over-directed. Elevation is 0 degrees, held in the comb, and the line is cut square. Forward graduation recap. Partings and sections move from a profile into diagonal back, into pivoting diagonal back. Distribution is T to the parting. Elevation is a stationary 45 degrees. The line is cut visually from the baseline up. Having checked the balance of the forward graduation, a profile section is taken, approximately ½ an inch wide, from the front hairline to the nape. With the head upright, the section is combed to 90 degrees using the fine teeth of the comb. The line is cut square using the front and side perimeter as a guide to length. From the crown to the occipital, the hair is over-directed up and continued square to follow the guideline. Radial partings are taken from the crown to the top of the ears, separating the back sections from the front. Keeping the profile parting in place, a pivoting radial section is taken from the crown to the nape. head upright, the section is combed at 90 degrees to over-directed. And cut to follow the guideline. Pivoting radial sections are continued until reaching the radial parting, and the technique repeated. Repeat the process on the opposite side. Note the hand, arm, and body positions, which all promote squareness. Check balance and cross-check using diagonal back sections. Working in front of the radial parting, a horizontal section is taken from the profile parting to the hairline at the side. With the head upright, using the fine teeth of the comb, the section is combed at 90 degrees to over-directed. The line is cut square, using the profile and the previous section as guides to length. Continue the horizontal sections forward and repeat the technique in exactly the same way. The last horizontal section at the front hairline is over-directed back to the previous section to allow for the recession area. cross-check using diagonal back sections. Repeat the process on the opposite side. Using horizontal sections, continue working forward on the head. Once again, cross-check with diagonal back sections. The hair is now ready for blow drying. Power dry to remove excess moisture. Work in sections up the head using a round brush. Here the hair has been coloured using the reverse diagonal technique, which can be viewed on our classic colouring series. The shape is checked visually. Square layer recap. Partings and sections move from a profile into pivoting radials, into horizontal. Distribution moves from 90 degrees to over-directed. Elevation is also 90 degrees to over-directed. And the line is cut square. Personalizing is an essential part of the Toni and Guy philosophy. Texturizing techniques are used to adapt classic shapes to suit the individual. On the last video in this series, we introduced techniques such as point cutting, slicing, brick cutting, and razoring, which expand the classic portfolio to accommodate all lengths and textures of hair and allow the stylist to develop their creativity for the benefit of the client. round layer technique creates texture through the internal area of the cut and softness around the perimeter. A profile section is taken approximately ½ an inch wide from the front hairline to the nape. With the head upright, the section is combed up at 90 degrees using the fine teeth of the comb. The line is cut to follow the head from the front hairline to the nape. Check balance. Radial partings are taken from the crown to the top of the ears on both sides, separating the back from the front. A pivoting radial section is taken from the crown to the nape. With the head upright, the section is combed up to 90 degrees, again using the fine teeth of the comb. The line is cut following the head shape, using the profile section as a guide. Continue taking pivoting radial sections until the initial radial parting is reached. Always subdivide the previous section to use as a guide. Repeat the process on the opposite side. Cross-check technically for shape and balance. Working in front of the radial parting, pivoting radial sections are continued until reaching the profile section. Continue to cut using exactly the same method. Cross-check by taking diagonal back sections, elevating to 90 degrees and removing any excess length. Repeat the process on the opposite side, using the same pivoting radial sections. Again cross-check using diagonal back sections. Check balance. The hair is now blow-dried, using a round brush to straighten the model's natural wave. Here, the hair has been coloured using the diagonal W technique, which can be viewed on the Toni & Guy Classic Colour series. The perimeter is personalised to suit the individual, using a combination of point cutting and deeper parallel point cutting. Round layer recap. Partings and sections move from a profile into pivoting radials. Distribution is 90 degrees. Elevation is also 90 degrees. And the line is cut parallel to the head shape. Personalizing is an essential part of the Toni and Guy philosophy. Texturizing techniques are used to adapt classic shapes to suit the individual. On the last video in this series, we introduced techniques such as point cutting, slicing, brick cutting, and razoring, which expand the classic portfolio to accommodate all lengths and textures of hair and allow the stylist to develop their creativity for the benefit of the client. The graduated layer technique creates shape and texture through the interior and graduated softness around the perimeter. A profile parting is taken from the center of the forehead to the center of the nape. A horseshoe section is taken from below the crown to the recession area. A slightly diagonal forward section is taken from the center of the horseshoe down to the nape. With the head upright, the section is combed and elevated to 90 degrees. The line is cut to decrease in length from the interior to the perimeter. Slightly diagonal forward sections are continued through the back to behind the ear. Subdivide the previous section to use as a guide. Comb and elevate to 90 degrees and cut to follow the guideline. From the ear forward, continue working with diagonal forward sections. Comb and elevate to 90 degrees and cut to decrease in length. The last section is over-directed back to the previous to maintain length and softness at the perimeter, and can be personalized once the shape is dried. Cross-check horizontally. The technique is repeated on the opposite side. Note how the hand position changes. The balance is checked before continuing. radial partings are taken from the crown to the top of the ear, separating the back sections from the front. A pivoting radial section is taken from the crown to the top of the occipital. With the head upright, the section is combed to 90 degrees. The line is cut, connecting the internal length to the previously cut graduation at the same angle. Pivoting radial sections are worked in the same way. Cutting to follow the guide until the radial parting is reached. The technique is repeated on the opposite side. Again, note how the hand position has changed. Check balance. Working in front of the radial parting,